for the first time in more years than I care to say, I've actually experienced growth. And so next thing I knew, some of my cohort sisters was like, okay, girl, I got you over here. I got you over there. And then I was like, okay, this way I need to fall back. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go ahead and I'll take the lead on it. And I was like, oh my God, this is what it actually feels like to have healthy collaboration. And all of a sudden, I felt this lightness of being. I started to feel myself grow.
This program led to tangible career advancement.
Our programs create individual and systemic change.
It's ambitious and it's bold.
So I feel like I can sit at the head of the table, which I do all the time now.
Through this program, I was able to meet a short-term goal of growing my team to tell some of the most important stories of our current history.
We've cracked the code on what holds women back
by redefining from oppressive power over
to generative and limitless power to.
Women can embrace their phenomenal power to lead with intention.
To heal marginalized leaders and counteract systems of oppression through cross-cultural racial healing conversations.
To learn the 9 leadership power tools and make strategic leadership action plans.
To brand their brilliance with clarity and to use their influence with confidence.
We have the program and the proof, and we are ready to transform the systems that have held women back for too long.
Hello, everyone. I am Jamia Wilson, and I am thrilled to welcome you to celebrate the 10th anniversary of Take the Lead. And as we kick off this anniversary kickoff, I just want to tell you a little bit about these 2 wonderful women who I'm sitting with today. We're having a conversation about women, power, and leadership. And I have been so lucky, so blessed to be mentored and supported by the sisterhood, friendship, and leadership of these 2 glorious Glorias. And you've both taught me so much, I could fill a dissertation. So I'm going to keep it short, but just to say that I met both of these Glorias over 2 decades ago as I enter the middle stage of my life, and I look back at what they have taught me about taking the lead and tapping into my power to uplift others through their example and through their words and through the friendship and support that they have for each other. So as we kick off this conversation with all of you, over 800 people from around the world, from New York to Cambodia, I just want to say it's extremely important for us to take the lead by being there to connect, to support each other, and also to have enduring relationships like the one that you have had and one that I now feel really proud to say that we've held for a long time. I ask myself often, I hope I'm making a Gloria proud. What would Gloria do? So you're also with us. We might be in the square right now, but imagine yourself in the circle that we're in with this beautiful space we're in today. We encourage your questions in the chat. They're just as important, and your leadership is needed in this moment to add to our conversation. And I also want to thank our generous sponsors and everyone who showed up today and took the lead by having this courageous and important conversation with us. So as we lead into that, I know a little bit about this, but I want to ask each of you this because every time I get to be with you both, I want to know more about what inspired you to be in this work and for so long. So first, Gloria Feldt, what led you to dedicate yourself and your life to gender justice and equality? And what was the click moment that ignited your work?
I'd just start by saying, first of all, thank you to everybody who's here. I'm just swelling up with about to cry. That video, every time I see it, I just feel so pleased and so proud at the results of the work that Take the Lead does, and to have made it to 10 years is pretty cool. It's pretty cool. Would not have imagined 10 years ago that we would have gotten to this place and have done all the things we've done. So to rewind the tape and say how I got here, it started in my early life. I was a teen mom. I had 3 kids by the time I was 20. And then I woke up. And I started getting involved in community activities. And it was during the civil rights movement. And I saw that people working together could change anything. And I also saw that the women were doing most of the frontline work and the men were getting all the credit. And that was when I thought, well, if there are civil rights, women must have them too. And that's what I want to do with the rest of my life. And that really was the epiphany moment that led me through all the steps that have brought me to where I am now. And I had a 30-year career with Planned Parenthood, which was wonderful. And then I also had another epiphany moment about women and what I needed to do. I realized that until we have our fair and equal share of leadership roles, we will keep fighting the same battles over and over again and never winning them. And so that, to me, is our challenge today, because we've come so far, but we need to make it through to that next level and have women have fair and equal leadership roles and positions and power and pay. And then we will be able to say we have what we need.
I was just thinking about this energy being so unflinching, and this was the same energy that I would experience when I worked with Gloria 2 decades ago, and I would be the one who would greet her when she would walk into the Planned Parenthood office, me fresh out of college in Washington, D.C., and I'm feeling really inspired as you talk about what it means to keep the work going even when we have the setbacks, that the unflinching energy is needed to continue the momentum, and thank you for that. And also for reminding me and teaching me early on that us grits, girls raised in the South, can do very powerful things. And Gloria, I would love to hear about your click moment.
Well, I owe my click moment to India, and I should explain that when I graduated from college, I was engaged, and I knew that I shouldn't get married, but I had to go very far away in order to, right. And of course, in India, there was a gigantic independence movement, and I wanted to record or learn about it, write about it, so I was just interviewing people, and I thought of it as the Gandhian movement. And finally, I came upon a great woman named Kamala Devi Chattopadhyay, and she was sitting on her porch rocking as I talked to her. And finally she said to me, well, we taught him everything he knew. And I learned, which I had not known, that the women's movement against sati, against all kinds of terrible patriarchal practices, was the basis of Gandhi's movement. And that showed me that movements were possible, that they often and could again start with women. And by the time I came home and looked at the injustices, racial, sexual, I realized that this country needed such a national movement.
I need to add one thing which has to do with Gloria Steinem, which is that in West Texas, where I was, hardly the bastion of feminism, I discovered somehow Ms. Magazine. And at that time, I believe that you all let us know who else in your area was a subscriber. And I found 6 people in a 100-mile radius of West Texas. And we all met each other. And bingo, there we were.
So
we were a movement.
That's so great.
Thank you.
Well, it just happened because my mother had wanted to be a journalist. I always wanted to be. So I had been working as a freelance journalist, and that taught me that women's voices were practically nowhere in magazines. So we started Ms. Magazine on 2 pennies, and so, right. But if anybody is lacking faith in the form of communication that you have today, have faith. There are people out there who want to hear.
That's right.
Well, you just taught me something in talking about how Ms. was connecting people, because now I'm realizing women invented social media. We were calling that too. Because of that, I'm just saying, you know, before Beyonce's internet, we had Ms. being a social media, and so I'm very excited about that, and also just love that story of you talking about, India, and when I think of the traditions there and how many thousands of years back in those movements also coming into this time, it's a reminder that we're actually going back to reclaim our original nature, and that is something I've very much learned from you. That it's not these ideas of equality and justice; they're not new. We're reclaiming what the earliest people have always known, what the earliest traditions that have built our foundations have known about how we should engage as a society. So that was moving.
No, I remember sitting with women in a desert area in Botswana, I think, in the middle of Africa, no villages for miles and miles around. And they were showing me, this is the herb we use as an abortifacient. This is the herb we use to increase fertility. I mean, it's ever been thus, and patriarchy and racism have tried to suppress it, but it has always been there.
Yes, and so it is. And Gloria, how do you define leadership? We're talking about leadership today, and it feels to me so expansive and also so simple. And so I'm really curious about how you...
I have a short answer to that.
Yes.
A leader is somebody who gets stuff done.
Yes.
That's it. That's all you need to know.
I love that. Okay, that means I think I can lead.
Yes, you can. The point is that everybody is a leader from wherever they are. Yes. And it's really important for women especially to know that and to really feel that in their minds and in their hearts, and to understand that power that they already have. Yeah, it's about getting stuff done.
Yes, especially to know that and to say it and to be supported by other women, because otherwise I'm sure right this minute there are all kinds of women working away and giving credit to their male bosses.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. And I love it too that, in even just the conversation we've had now, the women whose names have been brought into this room, and that is a part of women's leadership. I also love that in this moment we're talking together, a group of people here, but that you're bringing in those voices as well. And I see that as an important part of women's leadership, and I've learned so much about that from both of you. So another big question around leadership that I think really ties into what we're talking about now, and I really want to ask you and have been thinking deeply about asking you, is what role do you think we as women can specifically play right now in creating a more peaceful and a more just world? And how can our way of being in our leadership contribute?
We probably have a big advantage in that we don't have our masculinity to prove, right? And we are socialized to listen. I mean, the family is often our model of social organization, and that means you respect differences in age and education and ability. You learn to listen. It's a very helpful paradigm, and certainly different from most corporations and the military.
And thank you for saying that too about the paradigm shift, because as I'm entering this stage in my life, in the early part of the 40s, which I didn't realize I was going to love so much. I love it so much. I care so little about things that used to really bother me in a way that feels profoundly liberating, is that I've wondered about a sort of rage I feel about so many of the things that I've come to love about myself and the way I show up are the things I've been told by patriarchy I should lose in order to be successful or to be a leader in our society. And being a part of the movement with you both has taught me, no, you stay that course, you trust that internal GPS of what you came here to do. I think of Joan of Arc, my favorite leader, in terms of this, spiritual people who really guided me as a young person, saying, "Oh, I'm not afraid. I was born to do this," is always in my mind around that idea. So I love that you said that, because I'm now learning to embrace those things that I know that I can bring, those strengths, and that we should cultivate those in younger women to say, you trust what do you know about yourself that the world needs. And you've both very much given that to me, and to many others.
And we have, I think women have a cultural skill of listening because of the inequality that we've seen in the past. And we need to learn to speak as much as we listen, but listening is still absolutely crucial. And without it, conflict continues, learning suspends. I mean, you know, we should value our gift for listening.
Yes, it's beautiful. And so when we first started talking, Gloria was speaking about this in your experience of what you've experienced in your life in leadership. And I want to hear from both of you about this, but I'll start with you. How are we going to overcome barriers to our access to power when backlash is consistent and pernicious? How can we address the rollback of reproductive rights and reproductive justice and keep that momentum after we've made progress? How do we keep that enduring energy going?
Well, it's not easy, but it's definitely doable. And the core of the whole curriculum that I developed for Take the Lead as a result of the research that I did for a book called No Excuses, 9 Ways Women Can Change How We Think About Power, is that we have to change how we think about power. Yes. And we help women literally shift our mindset from the traditional narrative of power has been oppressive. It's been about fighting and wars and scarce resources. And once we can shift to recognizing that power is like a hammer, like I'm wearing a hammer, that's one of our power tools. You can buy it on our website.
Love it.
Unpaid political announcement here. So once you realize that power is energy, has no characteristics of its own. It's what you do with it. And you can make it the power to make life better. You can make it the power to make all of those systemic changes that we know need to be made. We can turn it into the power to run for office, to lead a company, to whatever we decide we want to do. And I think it starts with that mindset change. And once we have that mindset change, then we certainly need to have some skills and tools, and we need to have our sisterhood. We need to have each other. So those are the 3 parts of it. With those 3 things, honestly, we can do anything, and there will be pushbacks, and there will be setbacks, and there are pushbacks because what we're doing is so important that some powerful people don't want us to have whatever it is we're trying to have. And we should feel complimented by that.
And I need to get a hammer, so everyone, I need to get this so we can remember this lesson when we are in the work, because I also thought, in the moments when the hammer feels heavy, I know that I can ask you to hold it and you can ask me to hold it and then come back. And that's the thing that came to me in that lesson. So thank you for that.
It's a great song. If I had a hammer,
yes!
I had a hammer. That's right. I'd hammer out justice.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. And I'm so seriously going to get one tonight. So.
It's right. It's on our website. Take the Lead gets a contribution every time somebody buys one.
And I love it too, because, we're just going to hammer out the patriarchy also in terms of, to pave the way for equity and justice. So Gloria, what about you? You've seen a lot of backlash too, and a lot of progress. What keeps you going? What keeps you energetic and optimistic?
Well, you do. You do. I mean, we are communal animals. There's a reason why all over the world solitary confinement is the worst punishment. So we need to be together. We need to, in small groups, in lunches and big organizations, and whatever it is, we need companionship, and we should not believe that we can be solitary. Human beings are not meant to be solitary. So, if it means talking to a neighbor, talking to whoever it is, at work, whatever it is, we need to be communal to be strong.
Yes. And I'm so glad we're back together. You know, I was thinking about just that time that we were physically apart, and it feels really good to be back together. And
Because of COVID, you mean?
Yes, yes.
Right.
Because of COVID, and just because of finding ways to connect, but it really there's something about that energetic charge that you reminded us is intrinsic to our nature that is feeling very empowered in this room. There are a lot of powerful women in this room who you don't see right now as well. So I also just want you to know that that energy is also with us, and I'm feeling the charge of that. I know that I'm going to be fed by that out into my life, and it's a really, really good and sacred reminder.
And those who are with us virtually as well.
Yes.
Yes, thank you. So many people were so excited about this opportunity. So,
Yes.
yeah.
And thank you for giving us this opportunity and for 10 years of this opportunity. Because I don't know about you, but if you've ever attended a Take the Lead conference, if you haven't yet, you should do it. And so I can tell you that I have attended Gloria's conferences before, and they're absolutely amazing. And another example of why we need to gather and why that's really important to our work together, to do that deep listening, to do that getting stuff done together. And so another question I have around the power is, how can we overcome barriers to our access to power as women and encourage grassroots activists for social change? And then adding to that, what role does money have in that process? Because that's so often what I hear from other women about the major barrier to accessing that.
You want me to take that?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And Gloria, weigh in, please. I think what I found is that actually we have the power. We just don't always know it. And we don't always know it because for so long we have not had power. But by the time I was doing the research, like 12 years ago, it was already clear that companies with more women in their leadership were more profitable. Women were already earning 57% of the college degrees and had been for 2 decades. Money, we have the power of the purse. We are the ones who make the decisions about what the money of the family gets spent for almost all the time. And so, in truth, we actually had a lot more power than we thought we had. And so again, it's a mindset and a realization, and it's sort of like one of the things that I learned from movement building all those years is that very often you start a movement because you're not in power and you're trying to get whatever it is that you're trying to get. And sometimes you are at the place where you've actually won, but you don't know it. And I found that over and over and over again. I'll never forget the first time we did a professional poll about Planned Parenthood, and all of our volunteers were so scared and they thought we were so, such a little minority. It turned out that actually it was the best brand in the whole country. It was the most beloved. It was loved more than the Chamber of Commerce. It was loved more than either political party. It was like, but we are very sensitive to criticism, and so it's important for us to look in the mirror and understand how much power we actually have. And once we know that, then we can actually act on it. And particularly we can act on it when we act on it together.
And so it dawns on me that, okay, it's been 10 years, it's been 10 amazing years of taking the lead and activating that power together. What does that mean to you in this moment about 10 years we've had, and how that informs what's now and what's next?
Oh. Okay, so I'm wearing my shirt, 50 Women Can Change the World, we have, and it speaks to the power of the cohort, and it speaks to the power of having a plan to actually change whatever you want to change, or to whatever your industry, whatever your cause might be. If you can think about power in this different way, and then you have some very specific tools to be able to navigate the world as it is, but you can change it. And you have your cohort. That's the formula that we have found is the most effective. And so as we look toward the next 10 years, that's our goal, is to do more and more and more of these 50 Women Can Change the World programs. We have done 10 cohorts of 50 Women Can Change the World so far in nonprofits. We've done law, we've done healthcare, we've done media and entertainment, we've done journalism. We just finished entrepreneurship, which is really fun. But there are several sectors that are particularly in need. The technology sector, the financial sector. I think there's probably a need also to really make progress in the sustainability and climate change area. So, and certainly in politics and civic engagement. And so those are aspirational. Those are aspirational. We have lots more to do.
I'm so excited, and you're making me feel really energized too, because I also think to listen for it, like you said, and to see opportunities to take the lead and make that power clicks to me. My dad was just telling me about a dynamic new candidate in his area, and I Googled this person, and I didn't know they were a woman, and then I did, and I fell into the rabbit hole and thought, oh, I need to do everything I can to support them. I need to do everything I can to learn about this amazing person who is doing amazing work, and so and to support their ability to take the lead. So I was thinking too about how all the things that we're talking about now have an action component that can come with that. And that's a big lesson I've taken from 10 years of being a part of the Take the Lead community and seeing Gloria's leadership in that space. So we're having an intergenerational conversation. Although my mom used to say about me that I was born 35. So I've always sort of, seen myself in an element of feeling like, oh, I love this time of my life right now, because this is where I've always been. And I was curious about if there's a thing, Gloria, about young women that you wish that we knew. And now I'm getting into the middle part, but even the younger women too, but the younger generations that you wish that they knew about your generation. And then I also want to know what's something that you appreciate about the next generation.
Well, because of the kinds of inquiries I get online, and I think they think we knew more than we knew. Right.
Give that away.
So I want to demystify us and say, okay, we didn't, but we had hopes and we had each other. I mean, once again, we cannot be really at our peak if we're isolated. And the fact that we started Ms. Magazine, or New York Magazine, whatever. I mean, I'm a journalist, so that's what I think of. But that we started the National Women's Political Caucus, actually, which was composed of women of every description in both parties. It's helpful to have examples, but even if you don't have an example, think what you would most like to have happen. Invite 5 or 6 other women here, like to this living room, and explore ways that you can make it happen.
Yes, and speaking of making it happen, so, I was saying in the beginning, I feel that everyone who took time today to come and be a part of our conversation, we really do want to say thank you for showing up as a courageous leader. It's not lost on me that it is President's Day in the United States today, and we have not yet had an opportunity to celebrate a President's Day.
And we should have had Shirley Chisholm, who by herself took the white male-only sign off the White House door. We should have had Hillary Clinton. Let's remember that it's not a deficiency in women, it's a deficiency in the system.
And I love that, because that kind of courageous leadership for her to do that, and she's one of my sheroes, really makes me think about wanting to know from you both, and I'll start with you, Gloria, who are some of the leaders who inspire you today?
You.
Thank you.
And I'm really serious about that, because of you exemplify someone who has a very clear set of values and the backbone to actually speak them and utilize them. And that's the kind of leader that I really resonate with. Oh my goodness, there are so many people. There's a young woman in this room named Brianna Franklin who is starting an organization that is dealing with one of the naughtiest problems, not naughty, problems that so many young people are facing today, which is their college debt, right? You know, so it's those people who are there to solve problems, I think, more than anything else. There's a lot of sparkle sometimes, but not as much substance. And I really resonate with people who are those leaders who are getting stuff done. Yeah.
Thank you, and thank you for that. I'm taking that into my heart. It means so much. I actually, when I start so those who know me, I'm very into my spiritual practice. I start my day with a meditation, and one of the ones I do is to try to align with a strong backbone and an open heart. And a truthful voice and vision. So when you said that, I got chills that what I think I've been trying to call in for myself is coming through.
Good.
Thank you.
It does. It does. It does. And I, you know, we just finished this cohort of 50 Women Can Change the World in Entrepreneurship. We actually had 75, but you know, who's counting? And I was so inspired by these women who are starting businesses, and in almost every case, when asked why, it had some purpose. It had some purpose beyond themselves. You know, yeah, they need to make money. They want to make money, and they want to make it a business that makes money. And I want them to make really big businesses that make a lot of money. But in every single case, their story about why they were starting that business had to do with something that they saw needed to be done in the world, and it had a higher purpose than themselves. I thought that was just fantastic.
I love it too, and the reverberations of that, of what it means to do something bigger than yourself and how that is a way to be immortal, is something I think quite a bit about, which is why I think I like books so much. And Gloria, are there some people, today's leaders, who inspire you, who you'd like to bring into the space with us?
Well, I think myself of Amy Richards, who is someone you both know, and who is young enough, I think, to be my daughter. I don't know, she walked into my door when she was a college student to help me with research, and she's been running things ever since. I think of my, more or less my age people, like Paula Giddings and Beverly Guy-Sheftel, who've just been always there doing it and supporting generations and generations of young people. And I think of somebody who should have been our leader and wasn't, like Hillary Clinton, who, you know, should have been president.
But continues to lead.
But continues to lead, right.
Continues to do a lot of the work.
And Shirley Chisholm should have been president, too, right?
Yes, and like you said, in continuing to lead, that means so much to me, to really think about that, and thinking about women teaching me that. I mean, I will never forget that growing up. And you know, the things I wish now, you know, my mom is now passed on, but there are the things I want to just say to her, oh, you were right. That I wish I had gotten it before so I could say thank you. I'm sorry for that, you know, 15, 16 time when I did not have the self-awareness to communicate the thank you about you being right. But the thing she used to say sometimes when I would have a setback and I'd fall down is I'd say, oh, it's over. It's so over. It's a catastrophe. We can't do it anymore. It was too much. She'd say, oh, but can you get back up? Do you have the power to get back up? Because you still have power. Step into your power. And so I love how you said that, because it really made me think about that too, that thing that I've just learned from watching women like that and women like you, that no matter what is sort of thrown your way,
Have you written about Shirelle?
You know, I have in certain places and distilled places, and thank you for asking. She absolutely adored you, and meeting you was a highlight in her life. She asked me in her last days to keep writing her. She said, I'll figure out how they get to me, but you just know I get things that I want, so I will. And she asked me to make her a box to put her letters in. So I have been thinking that at some point I'm going to take those letters and make them into some sort of art or some sort of writing. But it was actually advice from you when we were having a dinner with our friend Letty. And it was around the time when I had lost mom, and you said, oh, you should try writing to her. And it really clicked for me because she had said that too. So I want to thank you for asking me that, because that was also leadership and the ways that we lead in each other's lives.
Yeah, no, as long as we remember someone, they are alive.
Yes. Thank you. And you remembering Shirley Chisholm and her leadership, I think about that too, that, you know, I have never met Bella Abzug, but I feel like I know her through your stories and through the work and the policy benefits that I have had throughout my life as a result of her. And so I want to thank you for that too, that this leadership is everlasting, the impacts and the reverberations of it, and that is extremely important to me. And I think that's part of what keeps me optimistic, which is a question that I want to ask you, Gloria, about, because we talked a little bit about it before, but is there anything you want to say to us about, you know, what's giving you that feeling of hope as we move forward?
I feel so exceedingly fortunate that I have had the opportunity to live long enough and be involved long enough that I can see that you can make a difference. I can see that it is possible to make progress. I know that sometimes in the moment, especially when there's some big setback, like the Dobbs case, for example, or like not having ERA in the Constitution, for example, or, you know, things like that. And it's easy to get deflated, but when you have had the opportunity, as I have had, to see as Martin Luther King said, the long arc of history, it does bend toward justice. It really does. And knowing that it doesn't always work out, but on the other hand, sometimes it really does. And the trajectory is good. I mean, when I started out with Take the Lead and when I did this research initially, women were at 18% of the top leadership positions. Now they're at somewhere between 25 and 30. And once you get to that stage, it's much easier to double to 50%. That's my theory anyway. And so I think there's lots of reason to be optimistic. And anyway, it's just a healthier way to live.
And I'm excited about that future. As I was seeing you raising the mantle of the amount of us, I thought, yes, we need more is more.
Right, and the amount at the family level too, because we count, as we should, the leadership positions, political, economic, and so on. But it all starts in the family.
Absolutely.
And do sons get a chance to be as loving and nurturing to younger siblings? I mean, you know, there was once a program here in New York started by a child care center because the boys were so interested in taking care of babies. Because it made them feel responsible and so on. So it was called Oh Boy Babies was the name of it.
That's so cool.
But that, you know, that can happen at a family level too.
Okay, so I won't whip out the picture of my grandson with his daughter, my first great-granddaughter, Ava. And it's so wonderful watching because he's totally involved. And that would not have happened a generation or two ago.
That is so beautiful, and also gives me the hope. And so we realized that we have all of you amazing people here, and you were in the conversation with us, and we have questions, and we have some special questions here that are coming. But before we go to that and some other special surprises, I have one last question for us to talk about for both of you, which is about movies. So one of the things that provides the inspiration and the hope for us are films. You know, art can really help us see what's possible and expand. What movie has inspired you the most to continue to take the lead? For me, Daughters of the Dust is a beautiful movie that has had that role. I am descended from Low Country Carolina Black women who are proud of our heritage, our languages, and our culture. And seeing that movie, even though I was a young child, but also sort of watching my mom respond to seeing that movie and all of the things that were unsaid around her and her sorority sisters making a ritual of going to support this really showed me something about maybe not knowing the words yet, but saying, oh, I want that in my life. That's what powerful women do. What are those films to you?
I don't know, because there aren't enough, right? So it's, I mean, I think of because at my age, okay, Audrey Hepburn in Breakfast at Tiffany's.
Yes.
Because at least she was out there being untraditional and having dreams and standing outside Tiffany's. Right. I don't know. What are there?
I love her too.
Yeah.
I love her too.
Okay, so this may sound flippant.
What's inspired you?
This may sound flippant, but it isn't. It's very serious. The Wizard of Oz.
Oh, yes.
The Wizard of Oz, because first of all, it was the first movie that I saw where the female was the protagonist. She was the smart one. She was the one who pulled back the curtain on the wizard, who acknowledged he was not a bad man, but he wasn't a very good wizard. And it was Dorothy who did all that. And so I actually wore my silver shoes today because a lot of people think her slippers were red because that was the Disney version. But actually in the book, which I read every single Wizard of Oz book, her shoes were silver. So there you are. But it was a role model in a time when girls didn't really have role models like that.
And it was written for that purpose. The
Exactly.
Wizard of Oz.
There was a
Yes.
feminist history of the Wizard of Oz. We could talk about that for a whole other hour. Yeah.
I love that too. And yes, thank you. I'm gonna go and rewatch it now because I need to know more about the feminist history. So I also love that too. You led by teaching me something. So as we get into your amazing questions, we have some questions that we're going to get started with soon. I want to say that in celebration of the big birthday today, there's going to be some presents, and that includes book giveaways. So there will be a winner of a stack of signed books with some feminist goodies from me included. I had pins made for my book for young readers titled This Book is Feminist, and they have little buttons that can go with it. So you'll be getting a care package with that, as well as another book called Roadmap for Revolutionaries. As well. And so the winners of
The winner of that one.
of
would be
that,
one.
the winner of that book and some other goodies is Natalie Javadi. Congratulations, and I'll send you a special note with some other special love. And I also want to remind that those of you who are asking questions in the chat are being randomly chosen for these book giveaways. So Natalie, you might just be surprised that you just got a special gift, but it's exciting to be able to send it to you, and I want to thank you for your leadership. So the next thing I want to do is ask a question to Maggie McGrath,
Okay.
who is editor-in-chief of Forbes Women, who is going to share a question with us.
Thank you so much. Hey everyone, it's good to see you again, Gloria. Thank you for joining us last year at the Forbes event. So as the co-founder of Ms. Magazine, you used the power of the press to share information about feminist ideals. But today we are in a more fractured media environment than ever before. So this is perhaps self-serving, but how can members of the media or people who speak to the media or who have social media platforms use their voice to break through the noise? And do you think it's possible for people, journalists, creators, to have the same influence that you and Ms. Magazine had 50 years ago?
Yeah, no, I think it's not only possible, it's possible for many more people. I mean, because our access to each other, at least if we have computers and electricity and so on, has so vastly increased that we can, each of us, almost publish our own magazine. And, you know, I mean, I wish there were a satellite in the sky that allowed all the places on Earth that don't even have electricity to participate, because it still is too divided. But it has multiplied, you know, hugely since we started Ms. Magazine.
That's true. And then I have a separate question for Gloria Feldt.
Yes, ma'am.
We talk to so many founders and CEOs and investors at Forbes. A lot of people who have platforms.
You're not picking up.
Oh, never mind then.
Keep going.
Oh,
Keep going. Well,
I was going to say a lot of people who have platforms and power to speak but are afraid to use those platforms for fear of their board, their shareholders, or the public, you know, getting canceled. What's your advice to those people who have the power and platform to speak but aren't doing so?
Jamia, can you repeat the question?
Yes, so Maggie has a question about people who have platforms with which to speak, but there's concerns in an increasingly divided culture, in a culture of cancellation, and also I think just increasingly fraught climate on social media. What advice do you have for people who want to take the lead, be a active participant in conversations, who are feeling as if maybe pressure to stay silent? Is that what you're saying too? Or
a CEO who can speak out in favor of equality, reproductive freedom, but has a board or shareholders and they feel hamstrung in maybe offering reproductive rights to their employees or coming out with a statement.
So yes, people feeling fear around speaking truth to power because they don't have the institutional support to do so too.
I would give that, there's actually two sides to the answer that I would like to give to that. One part of it is that we have a job to do. We have to let them know that they are supportive. We have to let them know that we will buy their products and services. We have to be organized, and we have to speak up. If they are willing to actually take a stand, we need to be prepared to support them in that. And I think too often we're too quiet about it, because that's just the nature of our beast. We're kind of like, live and let live folks, and we need to be proactive about it. And there, I will do a quick plug for one of our partner organizations, Gender Fair, that actually can tell us all where to spend our money with companies that actually do have family-friendly policies that actually do support the causes we support. And I think that's the kind of thing that we need to do to systematize it, so that people can easily find out where should I be spending my money, and that's what talks. That's what ultimately talks. The other thing that is important is the flip side of that coin is for there's hardly a company that can get away with not taking positions on things today. Now, they might have been able to get away with that, 50 years ago, when they would say the business of business is business, and they didn't take positions on any of these things. The employees today expect the companies they work for to have some kind of ethical positions, and they're going to be paying attention to it, and so do shareholders, and so do customers. So I think so companies and organizations and individuals can no longer just shy away from taking positions, because they're going to be called to task by somebody at some point. And so if they're going to be called to task by somebody at some point, they had better figure out which side of history they want to be on. And they better look at the data that says, 90-some-odd% of Americans use birth control. 90-some-odd% of Americans support the Equal Rights Amendment. How about that? They need to not listen to just the loud voices. They need to actually figure out where they want to stand.
I love that, and that people are paying attention, and I think that's a really poignant question, so thank you so much for that question too. Yeah. And so we have another question from our friend Kelly Goff, who is with us as well with Power Red glasses. You don't see them, but as you can see, we're doing the Take the Lead Power Red. And she is here with her brilliant question too.
My only question is, I'm not sure how I was able to land the gift of being in this room for this conversation today. It's an honor just to, I don't know if you guys saw my ugly cry, but when you start talking about the impact of your families on your journey, it was really moving. It really, so I'm glad no one can see my ugly cry face and what's left over. Okay.
Crying is good.
So the first thing I'm going to do is a semi-tacky plug, but it involves two of the women sitting here, so I hope that's okay, which is mentioning that a documentary I made called Reversing Roe that would not have gotten made without the Glorious Glorias. And I remember pitching that film, and this Gloria Feldt, that I kept hearing the issue of reproductive rights has been settled. There's no reason to make this film, and if you do make it, feel free to try to pitch it right after Hillary's inauguration. You might get more traction.
Wow.
And so here we are all this time later. And so you guys can't see me doing the bow of gratitude to the women on this couch for making sure that project got made, because now it feels more important than any of us ever thought it would be. So to my question, and to you all making me Barbara Walters cry, can you talk, one of the things that kept coming into my mind is how much you were mentioning your family. And especially when you talked about your father, Jamia, and I remember sitting, because I work as a journalist and a screenwriter, and in Hollywood having a male boss once say, wow, someone clearly told you your opinion really matters because you don't mind voicing it. And I thought that was a bad thing. And then I realized he was like, no, I have a daughter, I'm complimenting you. So it made me think about how we're having all these conversations post George Floyd about how some white people can be better allies. Can you talk about some of your tips for how men can be better allies in this journey?
I'd love to hear.
Well, when you say that, I think about fathers. I mean, you know, because what is most likely to form a woman's opinion of what is possible in the world is what she has experienced at home. And if she had a loving, patient, nurturing father, she's going to be much more likely to pick a loving, nurturing man and to understand that that's possible. So we understandably get hooked on looking at the workplace and the political sphere, but we sometimes forget that the home is the root of all change.
Yeah, it was my father who told me I could do anything. He said, you could do anything. Your pretty little head desires. So, you know, he was still just a little, you know, little sexist there, but I couldn't hear him because the culture was telling me something different. And I had to become an adult before I could actually hear him and realize he's really right. You really can do anything your pretty little head desires. You really can. And he was the person who actually insisted that I go see The Wizard of Oz. It was like at a second-run theater in the small town in Texas where we lived. It had run its course elsewhere. He made me go. So, yeah. Thank you for even bringing that up. It makes me happy. It makes me happy to think about that. And to answer that question about how men can be better allies in general, when I am asked that question, which I often am by men, how can I help? And I always say, listen. Listen. Just listen.
Yes.
That's the most important thing. Just listen.
I have to say one thing I'm really starting to, that I've been saying, but I'm really starting to have it seep into my bones is thinking, oh, this is a thing I've been saying that I really believe is close to the truth is when I was teaching undergrads, just, down the street at John Jay, I taught a gender studies class. And at the beginning of the semester, maybe half the class would raise their hand when I'd say who's a feminist in this class. It was a general elective, so not everybody, wanted to be there, I think. They had to find the elective that fit with their time. And then at the end of the semester, everyone would raise their hand. And I loved watching that. And I would, sort of lay out through the speakers and the syllabus all the different things. And I would always welcome discourse in the conversation. But I wanted to say that it's just one of the things that someone left me in a review has stuck with me, and he said, the thing that made me decide to be a feminist was when you said that was in the best interest of men to access our full humanity by embracing equality and justice for women and for everyone. And that is something I think about a lot, that it is actually important to be a good person and a good human and caring and empathetic about the experiences of others. And it's in the best interest of everyone to care about everyone else's liberation and thriving as well. And that is leadership when men do that and model it to others.
That answer kind of said it all. I got a nudge from the rest of the team here, so I'm going to try to do, it's like the speed dating version of asking questions. We are in a unique moment for democracy and rights, asked one of the people on our chat. What should we do differently this election year in the U.S.?
Well, I don't want to assume it's different because some people have already been doing this. But if we don't vote, we don't exist. And to convey that message in a supportive way to our family members, to our neighbors, to the cop on the corner, to the mailman, whoever it is absolutely crucial. That sense of involvement and that source of power is crucial.
Yes. Jamia, you also mentioned supporting someone who is running for office. And that's the elections are the culmination, but there's a beginning. You know, there's like the day after the last election, the next one starts. And so it's incumbent upon us also to be paying attention and to support those who share whatever values we bring to the table.
So a follow-up to that we just got from the chat as well. What do you say to those who believe that in the context of 2024's macro issues such as inflation, climate change, global conflict, that reproductive freedom is, quote, less important to focus on and fight for?
But I mean, reproductive freedom is the single most important issue in climate change, because how populated the earth is, or how overpopulated, how we are using resources, is the most crucial question. They're just not disconnected.
I hope whoever wrote that heard that.
How about let's do another book giveaway?
Yes,
Okay.
I love it.
All right. So Deborah Levine is going to receive No Excuses: 9 Ways Women Can Change How We Think About Power. All right. We got lots of good stuff here.
It's a really good book, and you learn about the power tools.
That's right. You'll get all 9 power tools.
And Mandy Sangera asked on the chat, how can we empower the next generation of leaders and feminists?
Oh my.
By example, really. I mean, you know, there is all this gendered mythology about how women are supposed to be good listeners, and you know, that you'll turn boys and men away if you're too ambitious. I don't know. But who wants a guy who wants an unambitious woman, right? So send out the signals that are going to express you and also attract someone you care about.
Yes, and I just want to say, do what both of these women have done for me. If you're someone who has entered a stage where you have a lot of wisdom and vision about life, you've had a lot of experience, and you have the resources to mentor someone and to be a role model and to be an active partnership with the next generation, it's really important. I was just telling Gloria Feldt the other night that my mom would say to me all the time when I would say I would see either of you, or also our friend Carol Jenkins, she would say, oh, tell my gals that I said hello. I just love my gals, you know, and I love that they are mothering you. And I just love that about her, that my mom was so generous in spirit, and she was that way to other people and her students around saying, yes, you need other women in your life to help guide your way. And it was about more is more. So I want to say that if you are, and I think I try to do that now, if you are someone who can give of yourself in that way to someone who is also emerging into their next phase, it's really beautiful. And I'm really just grateful for what it's meant to have you both in my life.
No, well, and you are rewarding encouragement, and thank you for that. But I also am motivated by seeing wasted talent. Because, you know, my mother, who could have been and should have been a great journalist, really never had her say in life or her career, and it was very hard on her. So in both cases, it's motivating for us.
And Her Life inspired a beautiful play, which I saw and I think inspired a lot of women, because for those of us who didn't know that backstory, I mean, Gloria Feldt knows because we saw the play together, that when she got, I don't do this that often. Apparently, it's only related to my parents. I started weeping, right when we got to the part about what your mother gave up, because as someone who had a mother who picked cotton and grandmother who was brilliant and only got through elementary school, there's something really profound about, as I like to say, representing in the rooms I'm in for every woman who never got a chance to set foot in those rooms.
Yes. Thank you for that, because I had a grandmother who picked cotton too, and I think about her all the time as one of the smartest people.
That's right.
I have ever met, who's taught me a great many things, from how to clean a fish to how to read great books and talk about them. And so, you know, I wanna thank you for that, because I feel like that work ethic and determination came from watching her, you know, in her 90s doing farm work in the winter with no shoes on, you know, and that we sometimes see leaders in a very monolithic way, but that the leadership comes in multiple dimensions.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So is knowledge. Right?
Yes.
So Nicole Prescott asked, How can allies help raise up Native American women?
Well, I just think we need to ask. I mean, first of all, we can object to the form of history we so often learn in school, which starts with Columbus. Hello? Yes. I mean, there were also vast, sophisticated societies here that were actually the source of democracy, not only here, but in Europe, where, you know, Europeans came accustomed to one king or whatever, and were shocked to see the democratic system here. We need to honor that, and I don't know how the public schools are doing these days, probably many different ways, but we need to start studying the history of this country when people started. I mean, there near Chicago, where Chicago is now, there was a settlement that was bigger than London at the time. Do we know that? No, right, not usually.
Barbara Stillwell asked, what advice would you give to nurses and others in gendered professions that are underpaid and feel invisible?
Strike.
Another great film comes to mind, Norma Ray.
Yes. And as a proud WGA member, it works.
Right.
It works.
And when men who were medics in, you know, whatever part of the military came back, they helped, you know, because they had higher expectations. So no, there's a hospital 2 blocks away. It cannot exist without its nurses. I'm happy to march with any nurses anywhere. Right?
It's another know your history kind of thing too, because particularly in the area of women's health, women were in charge, women were in control for centuries. And but once the medical profession got, quote, professionalized, the men started taking over and took power away from the women. And we must not let that happen. I mean, I think that's the thing, is we must be alert to it and not let it happen, and form 50 Women Can Change the World cohorts and just go, you know, the strike and do whatever we need to do, because at this point, the healthcare system would completely collapse without nurses. There would be none. There would be none.
And we also need to look at the history of nursing, medical care, healthcare, whatever we want to call it, and realize that in the past, in many parts of the world, women were in charge. And the way women got charged with being witches, for instance, and eating babies was that women would go into a place of healthcare pregnant and come out unpregnant, right? So it's there in our history to find and to honor.
Hi,
Maggie.
Hello again. I have the next one. I have a mic this time, so I hope
right.
folks at home can hear me. I love this question because I think about money and the pay gap all the time. What role does money play in advancing gender equality? That comes from Jackie Zahner.
Oh.
What role does money play in advancing gender equality?
Jackie could answer that.
Jackie could answer it. And I just want to say, Jackie is one of our sponsors, and I'm going to again thank all of the sponsors who are enabling us to do this program. So go for it.
Well, I mean, money is one fairly universal form of power. And if that is not equal for equal effort, I mean, if we're living in a system in which now I think it's still true that men get paid more for being parking lot attendants than women get paid for being childcare attendants. Do we really love our cars more than our children? I don't think so. So we need to look at work that is the same and also comparable.
And I want to say, just as you answer this, talking about money like we're doing right now, I think is extremely important, because so many of us have been taught about stigma for talking about money, or being vocal about money with each other. And I want to say that Gloria gave me some excellent and investment advice yesterday. And so I had to just say that. Thank you for that, because that was mentorship.
It's true. It's true. Talking about money is important, and learning, excuse me, learning about money is very important, because financial literacy is very important. Knowing, understanding it, not being afraid of it, and it's the relationship that we have with power is very similar to the relationship we have with money. So we have issues and ambivalence about power. We probably have issues and ambivalence about money. And again, it comes down to how we think about it. And if you realize the opportunity that money gives you to do good things in the world, then it takes on a completely different complexion. And I find that women are much more ready to say, oh yeah, well, I want that.
And it's also true, not only in the outside world, as you're saying, in money, and so it's true at home. I mean, I remember lecturing someplace, and we were in the middle of a lively audience discussion, and there was a woman in the front who was not saying anything, and I thought I feared we were offending her. And finally she got up and she said, well, when my husband leaves his underwear on the floor, I find it quite useful to nail it.
I love it. I love it.
And I never forgot that woman.
Giving me ideas.
And I know I'm not on the panel, and I'm not Mike, but I just want to say, because we've talked about this, the countries with the smallest gender pay gap are the ones where they publish what people earn.
Yes, good point.
Yeah, right. Yes.
If folks at home didn't hear that, that was the countries with the smallest gender pay gap are the countries that publish what people earn. Knowledge is power.
Knowledge is power.
I have one more question from the audience, and this actually harkens back to what Gloria Steinem was saying about we need to be communal to be strong. And we are in an environment where a lot of us are working from home half of the time. So Shlomit wants to know, do you think the hybrid workplace hurts our ability to build communities?
Well, we all live someplace, and chances are that it's not a sex-segregated place. Chances are that we can find friends and colleagues and revolutionaries around us. So I'm not sure the situation she's talking about, whether she's working at home because of COVID and the lasting impact of COVID. But wherever we are, unfortunately, we are not racially integrated in the way that we should be and could benefit from. But we are certainly gender integrated.
Yeah, I think it's all about what you do with it, because I love the flexibility that working from home allows some people. I mean, we know it has allowed people with disabilities, for example, to be able to get jobs they wouldn't have been able to have otherwise. We know that in families where there are young children, it can be very helpful to enable you to do your work and stay in the workforce while also taking care of children and maybe not paying $10,000 a month for childcare. But what that requires then is to be proactive, I think, and to make sure that you do have a community and that you do have lunch with people on a regular basis. I'm a great believer in lunch.
Yes, and I'm a hybrid human, so I can just say that I, as someone who identifies as neurodiverse and disabled, really like the flexibility, because I actually think it makes me more productive. That having my work set up in a way that is related to accommodating my needs, I think actually adds to my workplace. And then I'm really intentional, like you said, about making that time to connect and socialize. So when I'm in the office, I'm actually doing a lot of meetings, I'm connecting, I'm collaborating, or I go in for projects and creative engagement. But especially because I work in editorial, there's something that I really get out of being able to really focus in my space, which is how my brain works, because I'm sensitive to my environment, that has actually been improved by having that. And what I love about it, which I think is related to women's leadership around the idea of that flexibility, is that, what would it be like if everyone's needs were met, or if we had environments where everyone could show up as their best? And so as someone who does identify as neurodiverse, I talk about it, and I talk about that in the workplace to say, because I have, positional power to talk about it. And I'm trying to use that privilege to say, oh, I'm neurodiverse, and this is the thing I really love about having this option. And this is, I can have all my different screens because I'm blind in one eye, or that kind of thing. So I'm really glad that you asked that question, Slomit, because it's something that's important to me as an issue that we should talk about. I feel like I'm thriving by having both options.
Great answer. We have more questions. We have more books. We have more books to give away.
One more, and then I can
Okay.
pass the
All
mic.
right.
This one is one of mine. Again, selfish, because watching Dobbs come down after growing up with Roe, it's hard to watch your rights disappear. So what will it take to enshrine reproductive freedom into our laws and Constitution?
Good question.
Well, obviously, we all have to treat reproductive freedom as at least as important as freedom of speech, whether we're male or female or whatever group we come from. I mean, nothing could be more personal, more predictive of overall health than our ability to control our physical selves. And if that is not provided by clinics or whatever the law where we are, disobey it. I mean, there are networks of people driving women to other places where the choices have been preserved. We could become the driver or the driven. We just can't take no for an answer.
And it goes back to your previous comments about it's important to be engaged, to vote, to pay attention to what policies people support, and make your decisions accordingly. Because if you don't, what did you say? If you don't vote, you
don't exist.
You don't exist. I'm going to remember that. That's another wonderful Gloria Steinem-ism that will be repeated elsewhere. We have some more book giveaways. Okay, we have some more book giveaways. Yes. So Debbie Howard. Okay, Debbie Howard is going to get Intentioning. And not only intentioning, but it comes in a nice little box with an intention candle and some other fun little things. So Debbie, that's what you're going to get. And I believe that someone is going to get a book by Gloria Steinem, and we don't know what that's going to be yet, but we will figure it out. And the lucky person who will receive that is Ann Bertelson. Ann Bertelson. So those are our book giveaways. And we thank you all. I see we are a little over time. And we thank you all for actually staying with us, because we will make sure that you get the replay if you had to sign off or whatever. Before Jamia closes out, I want to say a personal thank you to people for helping to celebrate Take the Lead's 10th anniversary. But more importantly, to all of the people who care so much. And when I looked at the list of people who signed up for this virtual conversation on women, power, and leadership, I saw politicians, I saw heads of organizations, I saw business people, I saw lawyers, I saw social justice workers, I saw the people who can truly make all of this change happen that we're talking about. So you don't need to be empowered, folks. You got the power. Remember that. And we have the cupcakes. We have the cupcakes. So it is a birthday.
And we're very grateful. I'm so grateful to be connected by Zoom. Right.
Yes.
I mean,
yes.
And this is a step towards being in the same room together, which I hope will happen.
Yes, and I want to just thank you for the radical inclusion with the cupcakes, because as a celiac human being, they have gluten-free cupcakes here that I can eat. So I just want to say we are walking our talk here as we are thank you for taking the lead to remember that detail that helps me feel fully human and seen. And I say that with all seriousness because, sometimes I remember someone very vulnerably telling me in response to an essay I wrote about how to be an ally, and I was going around interviewing people about what is it that makes you not want to take action? What is it that, and it wasn't sort of what I thought, what I wanted confirmation bias on. A lot of times, sometimes people said, I'm overwhelmed. It feels too big. I don't know what the right next step to take is. And so what I think about the feeling we're having right now is that, you know, sometimes the right next step is to just gather with other people and talk about how you want to remake the world and figure out a plan. And that's what we're doing together today. And I just want to thank you all and these amazing Glorias that I'm so blessed to be here with today, and all of you for taking the lead and being here today. Wishing you a leaderful week, and hope that each of you will, as we like to say, my people in the Carolinas, be a blessing to somebody in your life by taking the lead and also helping someone else by reflecting their leadership and their potential for leadership back to them. Thank you for a beautiful conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jamia, for doing it so beautifully.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yay.